It was the afternoon of October 6, 1973, the Jewish holy day of Yom Kippur, when one of the bloodiest wars in history started.
In 12 hours, we dropped more bombs on the Golan than we had on all the Egyptian airfields.
Egypt and Syria surprisingly attacked Israel on two fronts, Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. Resulting in heavy casualties of almost 21,000 deaths and 43,000 wounded until the ceasefire came into effect on October 25, 1973. To understand the Yom Kippur War, we need to rewind a bit in 1967.
In 3 hours, 250 Egyptian tanks were destroyed.
Though Israel and Arab nations had a series of conflicts in 1949, 1956, and 1967, it was after the dramatic victory of the Six-Day War in 1967 that Israel expanded its territory by fourfold its previous size. Occupied the most strategic parts, the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip of Egypt, and the Golan Heights of Syria, causing immense tension in the Middle East. The Middle East was a powder keg, tensions were high, and Arab nations had a burning desire to reclaim the lost territories. Egypt and Syria, determined to regain these lands, began preparing for a full-fledged war against Israel. Besides the deeply rooted historical context, significant military and economic support from the Soviet Union boosted the efforts of the Arab states. Egypt's political turmoil was at a height, the economy was gradually declining, and political interference from foreign nations was shaking President Anwar el-Sadat's government. He was under pressure to gain his people's support back at any cost, and gaining back the lost lands would be the best option to win their sentiments. Next, timing was crucial. The war began on October 6, the holiest day in Judaism, Yom Kippur, when Israelis were caught off guard. The decision to attack on this day put immense deliberate advantages to Egypt and Syria to infiltrate into Israel's territory. During Yom Kippur, Jewish were fasting. TV, radio, and other means of communication in Israel were shut down. The military deployment process was hindered by this issue, causing it to be less efficient, more time-consuming, and confusing. The war began with a coordinated surprise attack from the Arabs, heavily equipped with Russian weaponry with anti-tank equipment and an anti-air defense system. The Egyptians crossed the Suez Canal, quickly breaching the Israeli Bar-Lev line, while the Syrians stormed the Golan Heights. Soon, Iraq and Jordan's forces joined the battle with support from other Arab nations and Soviet allies Cuba and North Korea. The Egyptian army consisted of 300,000 soldiers and 2,400 tanks. The Syrian military had a force of 60,000 soldiers and 1,400 tanks, while Israel had only 6,000 soldiers and 170 tanks on the front lines. The Israelis were clearly at a severe numerical disadvantage, with a ratio of approximately 1 to 11 in the Sinai and 1 to 10 in the Golan Heights. It was a daring move that initially caught the Israelis off guard. The Israeli intelligence did not anticipate the danger and was not fully ready for the strategic offense on two fronts. By the end of 2 days, Israel had already lost 200 of its 300 tanks. However, within a few days, Israel, led by Prime Minister Golda Meir, swiftly mobilized its reserves. They managed to stabilize the front lines and eventually launched counteroffensives, pushing the Arab forces back with the intense price of soldiers and equipment. With the enormous support of the US, the Israeli Defense Forces demonstrated remarkable resilience. The intense fighting continued for nearly 3 weeks until the United Nations called for a ceasefire on October 25, 1973. Diplomatic efforts, including the famous shuttle diplomacy of U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, led to negotiations. After the Yom Kippur War, a new chapter in Middle East diplomacy began. The initial success of Egypt helped Sadat's image in the nation and increased his influence over the Middle East.
And went on to say the nation could feel safe and secure. It was now armed with a sword and a shield.
Israel and Egypt signed the Camp David Accords in 1978, resulting in the return of the Sinai Peninsula to Egyptian control in exchange for a lasting peace treaty. However, the attack had a devastating impact on the Syrian side, resulting in a high number of casualties. The war forced Syria and Jordan to lose significant portions of their lands.
That we managed to push almost all of the Syrian forces to the ceasefire line.
Israel and Syria remained in a state of war, and the Golan Heights continued to be a contentious issue until a disengagement agreement between Israel and Syria was signed in 1974. Based on which Israel withdrew from the captured land in 1973 and the Six-Day War. The Yom Kippur War left a profound impact on the region. It exposed the vulnerability and lack of alertness of Israel. Though it was able to expand its territory, high casualties were considered Prime Minister Golda Meir's failure, which made her resign in 1974. It marked a shift in the dynamics of the Arab-Israeli conflict and had long-term implications for regional politics and peace efforts. And it remains a crucial reference point in the ongoing struggle for Middle East stability. This conflict was a pivotal moment in the history of the Middle East, shaping politics, diplomacy, and the region's future. It is crucial to keep in mind that this was only a starting point, and there is much more to explore regarding its significant implications.